So let me ask you a question. What if you could stop making life a wrestling match? Like if you didn't have to prove your worth by always fighting? And really, who would you be if your strength didn't depend on a battle? Like if you weren't constantly in contention with something? And take a breath with that. Because for most of us, it's a question we've never asked. It's just been a given that life is a fight, right? Hi, I'm Leezá Steindorf. I'm an international speaker, executive coach for the Forbes Coaches Council, and I'm the creator of Core Success System. And here we look at life through four aspects, really: clarity, ownership, resolution, and excellence. Because when you bring those four together, life shifts in a really powerful and practical way. And if this message resonates with you, then stay connected because I share a lot of these conversations and ideas here every week. So feel free to subscribe if you'd like more content like this, and like the video or pass it on to someone else who's really tired of also fighting, right? So I'll be honest with you. For a good part of my own life, I thought that suffering was the price that I had to pay to feel worthy. Like I had to pay a ticket of working hard or struggling just to be able to feel I was okay to be here. And I believe that unless I was tired and stressed and proving how hard I worked, that I wasn't enough, right? Complaining about how many hours and it's so much drudgery and so forth. And maybe you've been there. And if you have, then this message is for you. So we're going to look at different aspects of this, and we're going to start off with clarity, okay? And that's starting with knowing that your identity is not struggle. We grow up hearing what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And we're told that the harder you work, the farther you get, or that hardship builds character, that our grit is what defines us. And yeah, I mean, struggle and challenges, we need those. We learn from them. They challenge us to grow and to do better. Absolutely. But there's a trap here, right? When that way of being, when that struggle becomes our identity, when it's who we know ourselves to be, then we stop knowing who we are without it. We forget about how it is to have ease and to do work or to have relationships that flow and that are joyful and not strenuous, right? And some of us, if you were like me, don't even know that that's possible because that's what I grew up in, right? So that was my norm. So if you think about it, how many times have you introduced yourself, I'm not going to say by your hardships, by framing it that way, like what's not working or what haven't you succeeded at, rather than what you have succeeded at, rather than what is working in your life. And how often you catch yourself saying things like, I'm a fighter, or I've overcome so much, or I've survived, I never give up. And those are all great things because life can be tough. But what I'm wanting to do is invite you to get clear on if that has become your identity, like if that's what you so connect to that you don't even know yourself without that struggle. And those are powerful statements, right? But they tether us to this difficulty as though that surviving and getting through, gritting our teeth and making it anyway, like that's what makes us worthy. And it's not. It makes us resilient, that's for sure. But that's not what makes us worthy, right? We have our worth just because we are. And so what clarity shows you is that you don't have to bleed to be strong, right? You don't have to struggle in order to prove that you can accomplish something. You don't need to break down in order to prove that you can persevere, yeah, or that you're resilient. So you can be strong calmly and quietly and consistently without the drama of this battlefield of life, if you will, right? So let me give you an example. You finish a project at work, and instead of being happy and celebrating, wow, this is so amazing, you may say, yeah, I should have done more, it could have been better, or well, it really wasn't that hard, right? You minimize the effort that you put in because either you didn't struggle enough in your own words, or you think you should have struggled more, right? Or in the personal field, maybe you go through the ending of a relationship, and instead of allowing yourself to heal gently, you go into maybe revenge. I'm going to show them. I'm going to just bounce back stronger instead of giving yourself time to grieve, which this culture is not used to doing, right? And it's a loss. If a relationship ends, even if it ended amicably, it's still a loss, right? So there are whole, and I've also spoken to, for example, that believing that resting means you're lazy, taking it easy, taking time off, actually going home at the end of the day, or not answering your phone at all hours for work or for whatever, right? Doesn't mean you're lazy. It means you're taking care of yourself. Like life is more than the grind, if you will. So clarity is sharing that the belief is optional, right? You don't need to suffer to matter. You don't have to work hard in order to prove your worth. So this week, I'd like to invite you a little mini practice. When you catch yourself labeling your worth by your struggle, then just take a pause and you can say something like, I am more than what I have survived. And let your body feel that. Like just let that sit for a minute. Okay, so let's talk about ownership. And ownership, the way that I speak about it is taking 100% responsibility for your experience, for your thoughts and your beliefs and your part in things. It does not mean feeling responsible for other people. And it also doesn't mean that you have control of other people or events, right? So we often believe that life has to be uphill in order for it to count. Like if it's too easy, people even say, wow, that was too easy. Like as though it has to be hard. And we don't trust ease. We think that if it feels good, it's only temporary or it's a trick and we can't lean into it. And I have to tell you, I remember a time earlier in my career when I was offered a job that was actually really perfect for me. And I loved the people and I loved the work and the mission was totally aligned with my value system. But I had this sense of there's something's going to go wrong. It just felt too good, right? And I almost sabotaged it just because I didn't trust that it could be that easy, that something that real could flow that easily. Anyway, I've come a long way from there, but it's been a long haul to revamp my thinking. And I'm curious if maybe that sounds familiar to you in some way, shape, or form. So ownership says you are not more noble because you're more exhausted, right? You're not holier or better because you're constantly sacrificing yourself. This the martyr syndrome, right? It's not so. You have value because you are here and you're good as you are with all your faults and bungles, right? And so you're allowed to choose ease and you're allowed to trust ease and you can keep it too. So let me give you an example of how you could trust ease. You can try this on. So a lot of people that are very active always do even more, right? So say no to the extra volunteer role, even though if you're a good person, you help people. Give yourself the opportunity to say no. Or if you are working overtime or excessively in your own business, then hire somebody, either in the business or maybe somebody in your household to help you out. So you can build into your life circumstances that will allow you to breathe a little bit more easily. And if you want to try something out tomorrow morning when you get up, you can write it down. This question: what would today look like if I didn't make it harder than it needs to be? And then write down the answer and try it out for the day. See how it goes. Okay, let's talk about resolution. And the way that I define resolution is aligning ourselves with not only the circumstances of our lives, but with our values and how we're living them in the circumstances of our lives. So many of us live in what I call the trauma loop, right? So even if we're not in crisis, we anticipate it. And actually, I've known a lot of people that will create chaos where there isn't any because they become used to that frenetic energy, right? So, and maybe you've even felt you've caught yourself waiting for the other shoe to drop, as they say. Like, is this relationship too good to be true? When's it going to end? Or work's going so smoothly, some problems got to be around the corner. So it's that anticipatory expectation that something's going to go wrong. So when we resolve that with a knowing that things can go well, and here's the truth: bracing for pain does not prevent it, right? Anticipating the worst does not mean it's not going to happen. It just keeps you living in it longer, right? There's a, um, buffalo, this may sound odd, but think about this for a minute. Buffalo have these massive heads with all this fur and just this big frontal body, right? And they're made that way because when the storms come, the really tough ice winter storms, they don't run like the gazelle and the deer and so forth. Bunnies run away from the storm. They turn around and they face it. And the thing about that is then it passes over them more quickly than they're through it, right? So resolution is really deciding that you're not going to live and relive in a battlefield when you've already arrived and things are okay, right? If you turn and you face the problem like the buffalo and it passes beyond you, then let it go and enjoy the sunshine, enjoy the ease that you've worked for. So that doesn't mean to deny your past. And I know from my own family history, growing up in a violent household, that trauma leaves an imprint. But healing means that you refuse to drag that old war into today's peace. You don't keep bringing it in and bringing it in. You let it lay. That's the alignment, right? So resolution says you don't need to keep the fight alive in order to stay safe. Okay. So here's a little mini practice for you to try. The next time that you catch yourself, I'm going to say waiting for disaster, waiting for that problem to arise, just take a minute and remind yourself that sensation of anticipating the worst was then, and this is now, and in this moment, I'm safe. And let yourself really trust that and look forward to what's coming instead of dreading it. Okay, so let's talk about excellence. And the way that I define excellence is it's not an end station, it's not a polished perfection. It's being your highest and best first for yourself and then living that out in the world. So excellence is not about being resilient because you want to keep getting knocked down. And it's not about proving to yourself that you have to fall and then get back up again so you can be worth something at all. If you think of someone that you admire, not because of their wounds or what they've gone through, but because of their presence, right? And maybe they have gone through a lot, and maybe that's what's contributed to their presence. But when you look at someone and they walk into the room and they have that presence, they don't need to announce what they've been through, right? They have this calm about them, and that's powerful. And that's being excellence. It's being excellence, and it's often the foundation of achieving excellence. When you can rest and reside is the good word. When you can reside in that part of yourself that is the highest and the best and allows you to be in this minute. So your wisdom does not need a wound in order for it to be valid. You can own your wisdom, and your light can shine. It doesn't have to, you don't have to always have something to overcome in order to really step in with your total potential. The highest version of you does not need chaos to feel alive. Yeah. So excellence says, I choose calm and I own it. That's your highest and your best. So I'm going to give you one more mini practice, okay? Before bed this week, before you go to sleep, just place a hand over your heart and say, I don't need to fight to prove my worth. I am more than enough. And feel that and know that for yourself. And let that be the last thing your soul and your body hears before you go to sleep. Okay, so let's bring that all together. So clarity reminds you that struggle is not your identity. Ownership gives you permission to choose ease without feeling guilty and without struggling. And resolution frees you from reliving that trauma loop. And excellence invites you to live as that light, as that flame without fighting. Okay, so you can remember that you are not your scars and you're not your struggle. Yes, you've had them, but it's not your identity. You're not that narrative of survival. You are so much more than that. And you're allowed to live in gentleness and joy and rest and not apologize. So if this message resonated with you, please stay connected. I invite you to subscribe, like the video if you have enjoyed it, and then you'll get, if you subscribe, you'll get more of these conversations every week. And you can also, if you would rather, just pass this along to someone else who's tired of fighting Either way, thank you for being here. And remember, you don't need to fight for your worth. You already are worthy, and you get to live like that. Thank you. Be well.